Well, I want to point out that where we left off was a very long time ago, because besides for the break of Yontiv, so during Elul, we learned Tomer Dvara. Anybody remember? We learned Tomer Dvara. So we're talking about in Av, and even around Av, we digressed a little bit to learn about Tisha B'Av and different related things to that part of the calendar. So I don't know about you, but it was difficult for me to get right back into it. But we will. Okay, we left off at the beginning of a conversation about Shimshon HaGibor. And that's where we need to pick up. Shimshon HaGibor, the time of the Shoftim, the time when we were at war and really under the occupation of the Plishtim here in Eretz Yisrael. When we first came into Eretz Yisrael, the time Yoshua, Shoftim. It was the time of the Shoftim, before Malachim, before there were Malchei Yisrael, before there was David HaMelech, before there was Shlomo HaMelech, there were Shoftim. And Shimshon was from Shevet Dan. And let's just remember what we know about Shimshon even from the Torah, in Parshas Vayechi, where Yaacov Avinu, before he passed away, was Mevarech the Shvatim, and he turned to Dan, and he said, Dan Yadin Amoy Ka'achad Shiftei Yisrael. The Dan, Shevet Dan, like their name is, Dan, Din, they should be Yadin Amoy. So Yaakov pulled a little language pun on us here and says, your name is Dan, do Din. In fact, the Gemara says, Gemara Mesachim says, Kol Misha Omer Dan Dini, Arehu Mishevet Dan. There's people like that. And no matter what happens, okay, take me to a din. I'm taking you to a din Torah. Never seem to be able to, they need that Suras HaDin. By the way, dangerous road. Not because you can lose din Torahs. Everyone goes to a din Torah thinking they're right, but somebody loses, generally speaking. You never know how they're going to come out. But besides for that, just a regulation I have that if a person goes with midas hadin, so it's very medayik, and that part is good, and it's very, it's very careful. That part is good, but you're also ma'orer midas hadin. So you got to be careful. Like a lot of times, you find people that are too din, that they end up with a midas hadin. So be careful. Saying word to the wise, word to the judgmental. So Dan Yadin Amoy. So he said done, you're done. This is like the Gemara says, Kol Oiber Dan Didi. Hareza V'Shevet Dan. Let's go to court. I'll see you in court. You understand the problem? Because there's more to life than did. There's more to life than did. There's even more to halacha than din. Even halacha has parts of it that are not din.
Din lamisai.
Done din, MS. Has to take in everything, right? So Dan Yadin Amoy, Yaakov Avinu said, Dan Yadin Amoy Ka'achad Shiftei Yisrael. Puzzling bracha. He should be Ka'achad Shiftei Yisrael. How are we translating that?
We had a few translations like that. Ka'achas. Remember, we had a few different translations.
What's the simple pshat? Let's not lose the simple pshat. Ka'achad Shiftei Yisrael. Like one of the Shiftei Yisrael, or the other Shiftei Yisrael are a big dot. So what's Ka'achad Shiftei Yisrael?
Like Echad. Hashem is Echad.
So Rashi says, in other words, you want to say there is no positive pshat. I'm with you on that. There is no positive pshat. Ka'achad Shiftei Yisrael. Kol Yisrael yu ke'echad imay. That's Rashi. That's the Positive shot, meaning put the truck a little bit different. Don Yodin Amoy Ka'achad. That is the traffic. Don Yodin Amoy Ka'achad Shiftei Yisrael. So what's it called, the tipcha? The tipcha is after the achad. The tipcha looks like a comma. Ka'achad. So Don Yodin Amoy Ka'achad. Their am will be Ka'achad. So Rashi says, Kol Yisrael yu Ka'achad Imay. Everyone will rally behind him. He'll have the unity of the people. Ves kulam yadin, so he'll be a shofet. Agav, I'm not sure if I'm right. I'm not such a bucky, but you would think that all the shoftim, which were the dayadim of Klal Yisrael, would be from Shevet Dan. I don't think any of them were, except for Shimshon. Agav. So it means that the whole bracha. Think about what it means. The whole bracha of Echad Shiftei Yisrael, that he'll be the Dayan, he'll be the Shofet of Yisrael, it all came about through Shimshon. Shimshon was who Yaakov was talking about. I don't think there were any others.
Isn't that what the Pasuk is trying to say? That everybody is going to have the middle. Echad Shiftei Yisrael. Maybe start with Shimshon, but the middle will be through everybody in one.
Are you explaining the pasuk? How the pasuk said it?
Explain the question you just asked. So how come only Shimshon seems to be coming from Dan?
So the answer is
that maybe it started with Dan, but that trait is going to be through the against Yisrael. A shift Yisrael.
Oh, I'm not understanding the pasuk that way. Ka'achad shiftei Yisrael. So far, Rashi says that the one will rally behind him, not take his midah. So far, all Rashi says is that the one will rally behind him. In other words, he will be somebody, a leader that everyone will rely on. They'll take his midah, not take his midah. That's a statement, right? Val Shimshon, says Rashi, Val Shimshon niva nevuazu. Where did this happen? Happened at Shimshon. So I'm saying simple pshat Rashi is it happened at Shimshon because Shimshon had the people rallying behind him, and he was from Dan. But I'm saying it's even more than that because he was the only one that was in that situation. There were no other shoftim from Dan. V'oid yesh lefaresh, says Rashi, I'll tell you now a second pshat. Ka'achad shiftei Yisrael kibiyuchad shebeshvatim. He will be just like the Achad Shiftei Yisrael, who was the main Shevet in Klal Yisrael, Yehuda. Why? Because Yehuda comes Malchus. Hu David Sheba Yehuda. So Shimshon, Yaakov gave Shimshon a bracha. Excuse me, that he'll be like David HaMelech. Melech was so far didn't exist, but he will be like David HaMelech. And then Rashi leaves us hanging. Be like David HaMelech in what regard? What was the characteristic of David HaMelech that he'll be like?
It seems like, too, that Dan didn't have people rallying behind him. He was out there by himself. He was alone in what he did. You don't see, he had an army. You don't see he had followers.
That's right. The Kash on Rashi.
Yeah.
On the first chapter in Rashi. Okay, let's hold that. I think we're going to answer that, but that's a very important question. Then the pasuk says, to be thorough here, Yehi don nachash ale derech. So here's another interesting bracha. You should be like a snake in the grass. Imagine you went to some makubal and told you should be like a snake. What's the bracha here? Yidankin nachash ale derech, shefifon ale orach. Shefifon is another type of snake. One's a creepy, one's a crawly. Hanoshech, the type that noshech ikve sus, that injects its venom into the hoof of the horse. V'yifol rachvay ochar, and the rider doesn't know what happened to him and falls backwards. That's the kinetic momentum of a horse getting bitten in the foot by a snake is that the horse stops at his tracks, so this guy falls back.
He rears up. The horse rears up.
Rears up. Okay, he falls off. And then Yaakov says, mysterious. This is the most mysterious bracha. Lishuascha kivisi Hashem. Yaakov Avinu was waxing serious Ruach HaKodesh here. So Rashi says, Anoishech ikve sus, kach darkei shel nachash. This is what snakes do. They bite hoofs. But Damehu, he compares him l'nachash hanoshech ikvesus v'yipol rochvai acher. So as it says, he'll go up and the rider will fall backwards. So like naga boy, that what the snake never has to actually touch the person. Like v'dugmasay b'tzidu b'Shimshon. We find this by Shimshon. V'yilfas shnei amudei hatovech v'shal gag besu. That he was able to bring down the house, Shimshon, at the end. Akamus nafshi and plishtim, he held on to the two pillars, and he got his strength back, and he pulled down the pillars, and it was a snake in the grass type of a move, because he indirectly killed everybody that was on the tops and on the sides, everybody under the roof, everybody over the roof. So it was a snake-like thing. It wasn't like he mowed everybody down. It was a maneuver here. Uncle's tirgov kichivui turman. A shvifain is a poisonous snake. Shem min nachash ein refuah and shichasei. That it's poisonous and fatal. There's no refuah. According to Turban al shem shoisa kol chereb. Okay. So this is lishuascha kivisi Hashem. Rashi says, what's that? Pasuk. Nisnave Yaacov Avinu had a nevuah. She'ilakru plishtim es einav. That's going to happen is the plishtim are going to knock out his eyes. They're going to blind him. The sefer loymar. What's he going to say at the end? What's his last words? Zachreni la, zachreni la. Said zachreni la v'chaskedi la achapam. Give me strength, Hashem, one more time to let me do this job. And his job was, of course, to I think Chazal say, I believe it's the Baruch of Basra, that by him bringing down the Plishtim house and killing all those people for 20 years afterwards, the Plishtim had a pachad of the Jews. So it was a very, very successful act of terror. He brought down the building in such a way that the Plishtim, first of all, it was miraculous. It brings down buildings. Second of all, he was blind. And third of all, he was weak. He had lost his strength. But it was this tefillah of Zachreni la v'chaskedi that he was able to do this with the tefillah. And how did the tefillah work so well? Ours don't work as well as that because he had a Yaacov Avinu. The Zayda Yaakov said, "Lishuascha kivisi Hashem." I hope it works out for you, that tefillah. So Yaacov Avinu saw all of this and benched him. So you have also Shimshon. Now Shimshon is, I just want to point out, very, very unusual and deep bracha from Yaacov Avinu. Just reading the story of Shimshon, we don't get the idea that he was knowing, sort of like the Chafetz Chaim or something. Shimshon insisted on having relationships with Plishti women. He, as you say, he operated. He was a lone ranger. The reason for that is because there was because there was a gzeira on Klal Yisrael for the averos that they did, that they're going to be under Plishti occupation. So the Plishtim were in charge. So there was no way to have an official Rishmi war with the Plishtim and win. We weren't holding by anything like that. What we were able to do is do this kind of a temporary measure to keep the Plishtim at bay. And for that, it can't be a tzibur, it can only be a yachid.
Why?
Why what?
Why couldn't be a tzibur?
Because the tzibur wasn't zocha. The only one who was zocha was the yachid. In order for a tzibur to win a war of a tzibur, so it has to be the tzibur has to be zocha.
So why was he zocha? Because of Yaakov?
He was zocha because he was a tzaddik.
He was a tzaddik. Women and everything.
Oh, so that needs to be reconciled, which we're going to do right now, I hope. You have to reconcile a very, very strange lifestyle of Shimshon, who was alone. In Shoftim, it's sefer Shoftim, it says that the Chachamim came to him and they said that, what are you going to war with the Plishtim? Don't you see the Plishtim are in charge now? What they meant is that Ali B'Davis, it's not time to go to war with the Plishtim. By the way, just in parentheses, I just see how this always repeats itself. This history, who are we? What are we? Deeper, just as a word of introduction, deeper is to say that there are always different levels of our triumph against the enemy. The ultimate triumph against the enemy, the takeover, we've arrived, we won, is when Mashiach comes. Mashiach ben David. So Mashiach ben David comes, and Mashiach is a king. He's eyes for everything else. He's a Navi, he's a tzaddik, but he's also a king. And Mashiach Melech Yisrael, David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. So Mashiach is a king. And as a king, he rallies the whole nation, and the whole nation is Kaddish and goes to war and wins. That's the Mashiach situation. Until there's Mashiach, there isn't necessarily, even now, like you have the Tzava Hagana Yisrael. So like we're involved in Hagana, supposedly. We're doing defensive, not offensive. Mashiach is an offensive situation. We're taking over the world in a good way, teaching the world about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, about midos, about honesty and integrity. I mean, we have to be holding by that, so to that. If we're not holding by that, so then the nation is not holding by going to war. We'll lose. So sometimes, if you look through Tanakh, we were Zocha, sometimes we weren't Zocha. So when Shimshon started to go with the Plishtim or go against the Plishtim, so he was told by the elders that when he going against the Plishtim, we're not holding by going to war against the Plishtim. So he went as a Yachid. And that's the answer. At the same time, this Yachid was Ka'achad Shiftei Yisrael, according to the first chapter of Rashi. He had the whole Klal Yisrael behind him. So there could be such a thing as an Achad. So this, I believe, in in Jewish philosophy, is called Mashiach ben Yosef. Just to make it easy, I think the Mashiach ben Yosef is a Mashiach before the Mashiach, which is a Gashmius kind of a situation, and it's not necessarily, it's defensive and not offensive. And on a very, very deep level, Rav Tzadok is going to explain, it's Mashiach ben Yosef must permeate the depths and the dregs of the world that we know it. It means that Yosef Hayya b'Mitzrayim. Yosef was in Mitzrayim. Yosef with Eshes Potiphar. Yosef married Potiphar. There's something about Kedusha, which in order for it to be complete, shalom, and real, has to permeate the lowest places. Very, very dangerous business for most people. Very dangerous. So what we're understanding is that in order for there to be, to give these words of Akdaba here, in order for there to be a Malchus of Hashem, a Malchus means everything. If you have Malchus minus one thing, it's not really Malchus. Something is missing in the Malchus. Malchus Hashem means that the world, Ki Malchus Shalchahi, everything, everywhere, there has to be, every plant, every poshea, every ganav has to be part of the Malchus of Hashem somehow or another. And the only way to do that is to lower, for the right person, to lower themselves into the dregs of society. Yosef Hayya b'Mitzrayim. That's why Yosef had to be in Mitzrayim. For that matter, that's why the Jews had to be in Mitzrayim for 210 years, and that's why it had to be.
So Yehuda's first wife also, he lowered himself before Tamar.
Yes. Now it's difficult to even say these words because they're dangerous words, but they're Hasidic words because Rav Kook said that he was in Golos right after World War I, in no country to be in. So he was David. He went from this country, that place, this place. He was like a malach, being the faith in different places. And so he said that afterwards when he came to Eretz Yisrael, he was the chief rabbi of Israel. So he said that his whole gullus, the meaning of his whole gullus, was to be, like every gullus, to be malad and tzotzos. So malad and tzotzos means that there are little parts of kedusha in places where you would never expect them to be, and you have to find those little sparks of kedusha, and you have to be malad and tzotzos. Lahavin. These are api Kabbalah. When Moshe Rabbeinu broke the luchos, the pieces went flying all over the place. So those little pieces that have not yet been picked up symbolically are the pieces that all has to come together because they have kedusha that comes together to create the mosaic of the Aseret Hadibros. That's the of the kedusha of this world, which is Malchus. So Rav Kook said that the nature of Golus is, the reason we go into Golus is to be Malad and Tzaitzis. We're Megayer Geir, we bring Bali Tshuva, we're Mekadesh things. I mean, that's what it's all about. And he said during his Golus, I think he said he was Malad Tuda Tzaitzis. He says Rav Hillel Zeitlin and the Nazir. Nazir's your grandfather, isn't it? Great uncle?
My uncle's
grandfather. Uncle's grandfather.
My grandpa's father.
Okay. Two tzaddikim that were secular. They were secular, and somehow they found Rav Kook. Rav Kook found out interesting stories, and one was a journalist, and he turned them into leaders of Klal Yisrael. So this is the Ma'alan Sotzos, but it's
or even people is in San Francisco.
Yeah, well, so you go to like Shlomo Karlbach. That was his whole. Today's your yahrzeit. Yesterday's tomorrow. Yesterday, maybe. Anyways, whatever, yahrzeit or not, that was his whole. So this comes from the Baal Shem Tov. This is not a Shlomo original. This comes from the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov used this very beautifully and reached out to people that nobody else would talk to in order to bring them close. That was the Hasidim of Yor. I don't know what they do today, but then at that time that was what it was. And by the way, that was the good part of Malad and Sotzos. The bad part is that this is what Lahavdil Shabsai Tzvi said he was doing. He was being Malad and Sotzos. He was also crawling into the dregs. The problem is that he was a dreg. The problem was that he decided that the way to do this is by eating treif. So there's a very fine line between being Malad and Sotzos and the Sotzos pulling you down. But there is this concept of. I presume that somebody like the Lubavitch Rebbe all of a sudden was sending people to every place in the world, to Mumbai and to little tiny places in the Amazon, and the reason was to be Malad and Sotzos. This is what it's all about. It's a very Kabbalistic, non-elitist tachlis of life, which is lo bishvil kulam.
Does that explain Shimshon's relationships with these Nashim?
That's exactly what I'm explaining. And it also explains why Shimshon crawled to a place. He insisted on Nashim Plishtim. Insisted. His father said to him, "I'll get you like a Beis Yaakov girl. You have to go to the Plishti women. What do you have with the shiksas?" But the answer is that he it is kedusha. He saw his tachlis. I point you to the end.
But what positive strength could he find out of these women?
There's a lot of he would turn them to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and then they could use their kochos for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the back of Chelik Beis of Mr. Eliyahu, he has, not known to everybody, he has a kuntras on Tanakh. So there's kuntras on Shoftim. He has 5 pages on Shimshon. And I'm looking at it and I say, boy, does this sound familiar? As I'm reading it. Then I look back to the beginning, it says that most of this was taken from Divrei Rav Tzadok HaKohen, the sefer Yisrael Kedoshim. So it's another place where Rav Tzadok said, there's Rav Dessler, Panovitcher Mashkiach is mostly taken from Rav Tzadok. And but it's beautiful in the sense that he litvicizes it. And, but let me just explain this. Give it a step deeper. What does it mean to what is the I mean the Kadosh Baruch Hu said be malad etzotzos. It's not like a mitzvah to be malad etzotzos, but what is that? Meaning that the ruchnius cannot be. The ruchnius of Hashem cannot just be in an ivory tower. It cannot just be with Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It has to be. It can't be with Yaakov and Eretz Yisrael. It has to be. Yaakov has to go to Mitzrayim, and it has to be in Mitzrayim. It has to be in Mitzrayim. The Geula from Mitzrayim, the Yetzias Mitzrayim, is about taking the Erev Rav with you. Is being Mekadesh, that which every place you touch. So this is the very, very complex. As I say, you don't hear about this concept so much in the world of yeshivas for a simple reason: they don't want you to do this. I'm just I can say whatever I want because nobody listens to me. But if Rosh Yeshivas would say, you have to get down into the dregs and you have to is that the right way? We would lose a tremendous amount of people. So right now we're in preservation mode, trying to keep our madrega on a high place, which is also something to be said for that. That's what the Gedolim said. But I just want to point out that there is such a concept, which is a Kabbalistic concept of why. What's the real? So the first part is Malchus, but even deeper than that, it has to do with Adam Arisha, because Adam Arisha, Adam, and then after him Cain. So Adam Arisha did the chet of the Eitz Hadas. Rav Tzadok spoke a number of times about these two averos that need to be mesukad. Adam Arisha did the chet of the Eitz Hadas, and who caused this chet really to take place? Nachash. There's our friend the Nachash. Don, you're the Nachash. Meaning the Nachash, even then, even before the curse, was a low bria. But it was Arub. It had a lot to offer. Arub we call achayos. So the idea now could have been that if Adam Arishan would have stuck with it and not done the chet of the Eitz Hadas, so then at that point he would have been mezachich and metayer all of the inyanim of earthliness and all of the inyanim of taiva. But instead he listened to his wife. He listened to the Nachash. He fell into the world, the earth, and the Isha, which represented to him Taiva, and the Eitz, the fruit, which represented Taiva. So the chet of Adam Arisha was exactly in this, that there was a downfall into the lowest place, and instead of being Ba'ala the Netzotzos were Ba'ala him. Hence, you had a chesed in the Malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
So he had this back to the circle. This Shimshon had to go back to Oso Ish. We ask him why the Plishtim ladies and so forth. He has to go back to Oso Ish. We want to do tshuva. To go back to the same makom, the same Ish and so forth. You have to fix it. Yeah.
Oso Isha. So the chet of Adam Harishan was a chet of Taiva. So it's in a svar. Then you have the chet of Cain. The chet of Cain was a chet of kas and kina. So in the words of the Gemara explaining these two chetayim, shlei miftachei halei, or mipischei halei, not sure how that's correct. There's two parts to the Yetzer Hara. One part of it has to do with taiva, lust. The other part of it has to do with anger, jealousy. It's two space out. But there was, between Adam and Cain, there was a failure on both of those, in both of those areas. You see, because there's also such a thing as chutzpah, which is kadosh, and kas, which is kadosh. Like Pinchas was being masak in that. So there was these two averos that needed to be masakin. When those two averos are masakin, well, let's put it this way: if those two averos would not have been done, so there would have been a tikkun. Here I'm angry, I'm jealous, Cain, but I overcame it. That would have been a tikkun. Other Rishas, I have a taiva for the Eitz Hadas, but I overcame it, So the Gan Eden would have been permanent, and that would have been Mashiach. There would have been a tikkun, because that means that the Malchus is reaching the lowest places. It's really permeating. You're really getting there. You know.
You're saying Adam had a job to do a tikkun even though there was no chet yet? Tikkun is usually, we understand, means I'm misaking something that was muvad. I hear you saying Adam has to be mal or something.
It's semantic, because so don't call it tikkun. The point is there was Gashmius. The Gashmius was not yet holy. It was about Adam Arisha going around Vayikra Lam Shebos and giving kedusha to everything. I think that is a tikkun, but it's not a tikkun of a chasar, it's a tikkun of a parv. That's it. The idea is, here you're left in the room, or Yitzchak Samet's left in the room, your job in the next 45 minutes is to make everything here holy. Right, just figure out how you can make the lights holy, how you can make the carpet holy, how you can make the paper holy, how you can make the bathroom holy. How holy can you make this room? This is the game show, right? How holy? How can you? No, there's still a wire in that wall. There's a pipe. There's still a toilet. How are you going to make that holy? Very, very big kud. So the idea of making everything holy is making everything malchus. That's the malchus Hashem. Is this Hashem's world or not? If you miss something, or if you mess up on this, so now the world hasn't come to tikkun. So now it's got to come generation, until we can fix up the Adam chet and the chet of Adam and the chet of Kayim. Chet of Adam, chet of Kayim. If everyone following me on this, it's easy. Who's going to be the one that's going to make this tikkun and lead Klal Yisrael to this ultimate tikkun? That's Mashiach when we're ready. See, so Chazal says as follows, that the Bayis Rishon was Nechrav because of what? Gilui Arayos, Shlichas Damim, Avodah Zarah. So interestingly, Chazal put all of that into the world of Taiva. Avodah Zarah, Lahatil Avodah Arayos. Shlichas Damim was also the West Side Story. It wasn't about. Why do only people with white hair laugh when I say this?
I laughed also.
This was all the Bayis Rishon was all about the one section of the lave of the Eight Sahara. Then there was the Bayis Sheni. What was that all about? Shlit'a. That was the second. So, like when you don't have that was the Kayin. So the Bayis Rishon fell in to the Chet of Adam Arishon, and the Bayis Sheni fell in after we were maybe masakin that already. The base Bayis Sheni fell into the Chet of Kayin, and that's why the Gemara says that if you didn't build the base of Mikdash, basically you destroyed it. Meaning you're still holding by Adam and Kain. So this is what's important over here. So the reason why you have to be malad and tzaitzis, you have to go into the toy store and be mekadosh everything in this world, is because that is the tikkun of Adam, and that's the tikkun of Kain. Very important, very deep and very important, very deep and very simple. And that's what Mashiach is. So Mashiach can make this ultimate tikkun. Mashiach, if he's got a people behind him. There's no Lone Ranger going to do this. So Shabbat Tzvi said, I'm doing this work. I'm being Masaka, but he didn't do it. He made it worse. Baal Shem Tov had actually a chaloim that the Shabbat Tzvi came to him in a dream and said, drag me out of Gehenna. This is Baal Shem Tov writes, in the Kisvei Baal Shem Tov. Drag me out of Gehenna. Any way you can, drag me out of Gehenna. And the Baal Shem Tov said after a number of years, he says, I'm trying, and it's not working out. Can't get him out of there. Because he went down and down and down, and he nosedived and didn't come up, and he brought people down with him. That's the worst thing. So the difference is between him and a Shimshon, whose attempt was to go into the world of the Nashim Plishtim and to bring up the Plishtim that way. It was all about bringing up the Plishtim. He also failed, but he didn't bring anybody down with him. So it's a real, if you figure yourself in that situation, which was in that situation, but people, we all seen as people have put themselves, felt that they were in that matzav. Right, very, very difficult place to be. Years ago, my friend Rabbi Eli Stern, who now lives in Los Angeles, with Harav Gershon Weiss, who was the mashiach, or Rebbe or mashiach, I think, of Staten Island Yeshiva, wrote a book called Samson's Struggle. I don't know if you ever saw it, published by Feldheim, I believe.
Feldheim.
Yeah, Samson's Struggle. So it's been out of print for a number of years, and when I was back in the States, I see it was republished, but they changed the name to Shimshon's Struggle. So Rosh Hashanah, the world got frummer. But the struggle is the same struggle I'm looking at. It's like, hey, we went from Samson to Shimshon. Like, who says Samson anymore? Like, Samson and Delilah. If you're frum, you say Delilah. Shimshon. So the name changed, but the story is the same story, because the book is about, and the Tanakh is about, and this Rav Tzadok is about, this Rav Dessler is about this kind of a struggle, which we don't have to go all the way, but at some point there has to be, at whatever point we are, we're touching a level below us, and the idea is to be masakin that level, to use the lato. By the way, the level doesn't have to be outside of us. You don't have to go to Manhattan for this. It's right here. The level, the base parts of us that want us to do things, that has to be besukah. Our own anger needs a tikkun. To get rid of it is a difficult thing. To manage it and to turn it into a davar shebekdusha, our own taiva needs a tikkun. So these are things that need a tikkun. Look, this is what it's all about. No? I mean, all of life. I mean, put the Baal Shem Tov and all the big rebbes aside. Just for us, that's what it's all about. Finding those sort of base things instead of saying, "Look, I'm only human, and this is what I am."
How do you justify the being against from a personal level? It's hard to comprehend the fact that. How did you justify going against
Halachically?
Against Chazal? And so at the end of the day, it was a yochid. So where's the Astoria component? Where's I'm deciding I'm holding it there and I can go against Chazal, against everything else.
What did he go against? He didn't.
But the Rav said before, he was as a yochid, and he went against Chazal.
No, as a yachid, he was allowed to do it.
That's what I'm saying. At one point,
That wasn't against. What was against is like Layala B'chayva, for instance. What's against is when you do it as a government, as a.
How did he hold
In
himself?
other words, like the Zionist question, which I'm way too small to paskin on, but the Zionist question is not whether there should. Everybody says, well, there were always type of a Talmidei Agra came here, the Talmidei Baal Shem Tov came here, of course. Everybody loves Eretz Yisrael, but the issue is, should you form together as a tzibur and do it? So okay, no law, I'm not, but that's the issue. That's the question. But Shimshon as a yachid, he said, I'm a yachid. Rasha?
So his whole life.
Rasha, exactly.
His whole life, he was a Nazir.
The Nazir was to protect him and enable him to. This is what the Malach said to Manoach, that if you're going to have a child, make him a Nazir. See, he had a number of fortifications going for him. This is important to know. Number one is he was Ka'achad. He was like Yehuda. Why was he like Yehuda? Rashi says. Rashi says he was like Yehuda. Ka'achad Shifta Yisrael like Yehuda. He might be Yehuda. Truth is, his mother came from Yehuda. His father's wife came from Yehuda, and the Cheshbon, the Svarmek, because he was 3/4 Yehuda and 1/4 Dan. Why did he need the Yehuda? What's Yehuda? What's Dan? He needed the Yehuda to have the strength of character for the Bayis Sheni syndrome. In other words, he was equipped, and then he was a Nazir. Why do you have to be a Nazir? A Nazir is precious. Parish Begafin, Parish Nazir. It's the precious. So the precious was for one was for the Chet of Adam Arisha, one was for the Chet of Kayin. Does everybody absorb that? It's an important point. That in other words, there were two aspects of the fortification of Shimshon. The Nazirah Shimshon and Baba Yehuda. Yehuda is the strength of character, the integrity, I'm not going to give in, I'm not going to be about what's right. But that wasn't good enough to keep him away from, he had to stay away from wine, he had to grow his hair long.
If he had succeeded to be a melech, he was a mashiach, because that was the Havimina, right? So technically, would be Yotzei Lo Yosef Shevet Yehuda?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems. In other words, L'mafreya, we could darshan it that way. L'mafreya, we could darshan, okay, that is Yehuda. So maybe it didn't work because he's really not from Yehuda. So Yaacov Avinu was hoping here for Mashiach with these psukim. Meaning, at a deep level, he was hoping for the tikkun of the chait of the Barisha between the Naziris and between the fact that he came from Yehuda. His Ruach HaKodesh was that he should be Mashiach ben David. But so he might have been like a Mashiach ben Yosef. I think there could be a lot of Mashiach ben Yosefs. I don't think there's only one Mashiach ben Yosef. So I think Yosef was Mashiach ben Yosef. So Basov, he wasn't the full Mashiach. I think Bar Kochba, Rabbi Kiva thought he was Mashiach ben David, he ended up being Mashiach ben Yosef.
Why does it have to be a two-step? In Shimshon we have both. But conventionally we talk about
Could have
Yosef.
had both, yeah. I don't know. So let's learn a few words here. Shimshon shechashav Yaakov alav shehu Mashiach, says Rav Tzadok. Pretty clear, right?
Which Maimer
We're in Maimer Vav, paragraph Zion. Where are all the Sfar? Shimshon shechashav Yaakov alav shehu Mashiach. Shimshon thought, I hope this will all be clear based on my too long introduction. Shimshon shechashav Yaakov alav shehu Mashiach. What does that mean? She yisaken chet adam harishon legabri. He thought he would be misaken the chet of adam harishon. That's what he saw. Ruach HaKodesh, Shimshon. Pretty serious Ruach HaKodesh. It's very hard to understand how he can make a mistake. He's got it all right. How could, if he's got it so clear, centuries ahead of him, how could it be a mistake? The answer is because there is one point which is totally in the Bechiras HaAdam. That part you can't have a nevuah about. See, somebody asked the Kasha on Shabbos that you see that Avraham Avinu, after the Akedah, according to Rashi, had a nevuah that Rivka was born. Rashi's nevuah had a nevuah that Rivka was born. So now, why does he send Eliezer to go and to see who's just say, go get Rivka? So the whole parsha over here is bukshas. The water goes up, the water goes down, the camels look like. Well, he did the whole story for it. Just go get Rivka. I had a nevuah, go get Rivka. See, I think, somebody asked this question, a very good question, but I think that there's no such, I don't think you find anywhere, correct me if I'm wrong, a nevuah about a shidduch. Where's their nevuah? Just go marry that one. She's for you. That's where we want a nevuah more than any place else. Is this the right one or is it not the right one? How could there be a nevuah about a shidduch? A shidduch, a person, your two neshamas could be together and all of that. Everything that the Navi could see is up here, but you don't know how a person is going to choose. A person has bechira chavshus. So the same koach, which is used for tov, could be used l'ra also. So you really don't know to say in nevuah, this is a good thing, because it could be potentially a good thing that a Navi could see. So Avraham Avinu saw Rivka, but you have to go see her ma'asim. You have to go see if she's feeding the camels and if the water's going up or the water's going down. You got to see l'maisa how seduk sechais the nevuah that I have. So in his heart he knew Rivka, but he wasn't sure Rivka. What he was sure of is that it has to come from base nachar.
Yitzchak didn't choose. It was Eliezer's choice.
The Seder. In other words, because Eliezer was the one. He said you could look for these chesed components. He was a bucky. Well, I think a lot of people take a friend on a date. Just see. So Shimshon shechashav Yaakov alav shehu Mashiach. His job would have been she yisaken chet adam harishon legabri. So Amar Allah. So Yaakov said, "The yadin amoy ke'echad v'darshu Chazal." Here's another drasha of Chazal, Bereshis Rabbah. Ki yichudai shalaylam. He should be like Hashem. Nikra al Shem Shal Kadosh Baruch Hu, because Mashiach is like Hashem. K'bo Mashiach b'chein tzadikim la'asid. K'bo shamru Chazal ki hayuroi liskais l'zeh. He could have been called on the Shem Hashem. Adoni Yahu, Shmar Yahu, Yirmiyahu, Yeshayahu, Shem Hashem. El Malay, what was the problem? The same problem as Adam Rishon had. El Malay Ha'isha Likroset. It's a pasuk in Mishlei. if it wouldn't be that he was brought down by the ultimate test, which is the test of women. Shadildila, Delilah was called Delilah. Shadildila koichai v'libai kechava le'adam. That's the lashon of Chazal. That she had the effect on him. Come on, tell me what's the secret. Until he finally revealed the secret is the Nazirus. So she had the same effect on him that Chava had la'adam. But Tikunai, you see, it's very complicated because you see what Avram Avinu, Sarah was telling him, get rid of Yishmael, he liked Yishmael. He liked Yishmael. So he didn't think he should listen to Sarah, or he should listen to Sarah, but other listen to Chava, he got messed up. So the answer is, Hashem said to him, Kol asher ta'amru l'chasar shema v'koilo, listen to Sarah. But lo pashut, sometimes yes, sometimes not. That's what you say, good or not.
Depends on who the woman is.
Also, Chava was a tzaddikus. So the tikkunai haya, the only tikkun that was left for Shimshon, haya rak b'mesh sheheves et atzmayim aplishtim. Let's figure that one out. He had to say, Tamus nafshi im plishtim. So he so much crawled into the dregs of the society with the plishtim, and in order to have a complete bittul of his own yesh, he had to bring down the house with the plishtim. Tamus nafshi im plishtim. The rabbim shehemis b'moisei b'machayim. That's the pasuk. Killed, first of all, Megashris killed more plishtim with that one move than he did with his whole life. What's the point? Ki hela oz kol ad itzaitzais kedoshis mehem. This is fascinating. By bringing down the house on the plishtim, he was malo their nitzaitzas.
The Pelishtim.
Of the plishtim. V'zeh lost nafshay, hence he was malo his own nefesh. Mashiach ben Yosef, he acted as Mashiach ben Yosef, Sheyavai Koyder Mashiach ben David. So what does this mean? Like all the plishtim in that house died al Kiddush Hashem? Ki'ilu, because I don't know if they did tshuva, if they all screamed Shema Yisrael or what, but the fact of the matter is they were part of a miracle. They were part of realizing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu controls every part of this world. And for all generations, they will be looked at as proof to the Gvura of Hashem in this world. So that in that sense, he was Ma'ala Nitzaitzis.
Like the Mitzrayim
of some specific door?
Stubba.
Like the Mitzrayim in Yam Suf.
Same thing. Lufi Shaloi Yigaber Hatikul L'Gabri. Since the better tikkun would have been, says Rav Tzadok, the nicer tikkun would have been if they would all become Gerim. Balei Tshuva. Avol Kiva Shaloi Yigaber Hatikul L'Gabri. Tzarech Liyos Neherag. Ubemoisa Yisakein Mashlo Yochel L'Sakein B'chayav. They were B'sakein with Misasam. Shadai Lo Zacha L'Zvichas HaYetzer L'Gabri. Because they were Zoveachas HaYetzer while they were alive. HaYoshev. And let's just end with this. Al-Beis Biftechei Halev. The Yetzer Hara lives in two sections of the Lev. B'Yimid B'Taivas Rois U'Ba'ava Zoros. Taiva, Ava, strange Ava. U'B'Smol Shorish Hakas V'Hakina. As we said. V'Hasidas China. Shal Zeh HaYa Chorban Sheni. So that's your Chorban Rishon. Chorban B'Yisheni. All because the tikkun is not made. V'chol golus zeh ha'aruch, says Rav Tzadok, in the whole golus that we're living in now, v'adayin berakin beinenu Aday's case is still with us till today. Aday's case until the total mashiach comes, the real Geula comes. But the tikkun that needed to be made could have and should have been made by Shimshon, and that was the so let's just think about this. Here we go. So Yaacov Avinu, Rashi says, ends off his bracha to Dan, which is Shimshon, by saying, Lishuascha kivisi Hashem. Lishuascha kivisi Hashem, misnave, says Rashi again, sheyinakru plishtim es elav. His nevuah was, my Shimshon is going to be blinded. V'sofa lomer zachreni lo v'chaskeni lo achapam. That's going to be his last words, zachreni lo, Achapam, Just remember me this one more time. So on that, Yaacov Avinu said, Lishuascha kivisi Hashem, meaning, what was it? What was his tefillah?
Hoping for Hashem's salvation.
That this, the meaning, that this should be
Mashiach.
a step closer, at least. Lishuascha kivisi Hashem. You're going to be blinded. You're going to lose. You're going to die. It's not the Geula, but Lishuascha kivisi Hashem. I'm still davening for the Geula. This should be the first step. In the Geula, at least there was the Zvicha of his Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Hara of these.
So that's the union of Mashiach ben Yosef has to die.
Mashiach ben Yosef has to die.
Does he mention Cain in this Maimon?
Earlier we mentioned. Okay, so we'll pick up on Wednesday. Thank you for returning.